Welcome to the Atomic Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Osborn. And on this podcast, we interview successful business owners for them to share atomic, impactful lessons that they've learned throughout the course of their business and share them with us that we can all learn together. As always, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way that established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversations with their ideal prospects. We use this method to book 26 qualified leads and sales calls in 10 days without any ad spend, outreach in the social media posting, or any of those old, ineffective traditional marketing methods that everybody hates. To find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn, have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. But on today's show, our special guest today is Keziah Robinson. She's the owner of Cassia Partners, providing business and organizational coaching, and has a few specialities, some around co-founders and partnerships, acquisition, single person acquisition, multi-personal acquisition, and also helping organizations around the whole changes around what's going on with employees, AI agents, and how that impacts the business in the future as well. So lots of different things. So welcome to the show, Casey, and I'm really looking forward to having you on. And want to start by asking you a question that I always love to start with, which is this: if you were somehow able to go back in time to when you started your first business, but knowing what you know now, what would you do differently in the first 12 months?
Oh, well, there's so many things. It's a great question, Jason. So, actually, the first business that I ran, I turned around for a friend. And that's one of the reasons I work with a lot of co-founders and partners today, because the business turnaround part worked, but the friendship was extremely rocky. So I think if I went back to that one, for sure, I would have hired a professional to help us. I would have read a book at a minimum about partnership. I would have done something. I would have considered that the relationship you have with someone as your friend, or as your husband, or as your business, your family member, changes dramatically when you go into business. So I think that like the greatest lesson learned there was like friendship alone will not carry you through business partnership. In terms of the things I'd look back from when I started my business is I was very afraid of being a generalist, and it made me kind of constantly retool where I was going. And this is a little bit of like counterintuitive, because we get told niches are riches, like everybody says that over and over again. But if you are a generalist and that is your strength, you have to figure out how to make that part of your strength. So while I have many, many specialties, and I will talk about them, a lot of what I have is that I've met with over 1,000 companies in my life, right? And so between my investment career, my consulting business, my coaching, I'm like, I have seen almost everything, good, bad, and indifferent. And there is something about coming into it and I think that if I look back, I would have really owned the fact that I had a lot of generalist strength and been less afraid of coming out as somebody who did not have a specific niche.
Yeah, really interesting. When you look at that generalist strength that you have in there, what's some of the lessons that you've learned, or maybe implement things differently now, embracing that?
Well, one of the things is to look for the super pattern. So most times when I meet a client, I'll say there's 5 business models and yours is price times volume. And no one has ever asked me, what are the other 4 business models, right? So actually there's probably a dozen business models, but I'll be like, yours is a percentage of assets. Yours is a subscription model, right? And so I think that a lot of the ability that we have when we think, when you have a generalist perspective, is you can see the repeating patterns. And what you're trying to sell is, how do I help you solve these repeating patterns? Not how do I help you solve your very specific problem? So something that's coming up a lot right now is like, how do we deal with AI? Well, I'm like, well, previously it was like, how do people do work and how do they work with each other? We've now introduced this other element, right? Which is a tool, but a tool that engages like a human in some contexts because we programmed it to do that, and doesn't engage like a human in other contexts. So it's like, all right, previously we had, how does the team get along? Now it's, how does the team get along in relation to all this work that is being performed by this layer of AI, right? And how does the team individually relate to their instances or Claude Code instances? I had this with a client recently. And how do they collectively relate? So it's all the same work, right? You've just added another element into it and you can apply the same framework. So I think that's a lot of the strength of being a generalist is seeing the bigger picture and the patterns that repeat.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's great because we need those different perspectives on things. And I think some people are really good at being able to see the very fine detail, and we need some
Yeah.
people that like yourself that can stand back and kind of see a bigger picture and see how everything integrates in with each other. And that's where everything complements together, which is fantastic. Yeah, really, really cool.
Yeah.
When you look back at the different business you've had and the growth that you've had, what's been the one thing that's helped you the most get to where you are right now?
I think that it's been kind of leaning into my network and especially like I've been going through like a CRM, a redesigning my CRM process. And I've never really liked a lot of the structures that other people have used. I tend to like to customize to myself. I try not to customize too much to my client because they need things that they can scale. But like for me, I'm
Yeah.
like, let me just customize to myself. And one thing that came up is I was like, the most important criteria for me is whether or not I like you, whether or not I feel a spark of connection and interest.
Mm,
And obviously you have to like me too. You have to feel the same way. It's a mutual, energetic kind of connection, right? And I once I figured that out about my business development, about the way that I went out, is like I stopped caring what your job description said. I stopped caring. Now you have to tier and filter and score, right? And I know that's probably a lot of the work that you do, but fundamentally, I would rather talk to 100 people that I feel connected to than talk to 100 people who fit my quote unquote target profile.
yeah.
And I think that was a really big lesson early on, was to lean on that kind of spark and that connection. And I have people who I have never done business with, but we touch base every once in a while and they send me a referral every year,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And it's like because we got along, they're
Yeah.
out thinking of me, looking for me, sending me clients, and vice versa. If I can help them in whatever way possible, I am constantly thinking of them and trying to help them. And they're not somebody who there's nothing in their job description, there's nothing in their profile or backdrop that would suggest that I should link with them as a center of influence. But we always just had a click and a connection. And I think that that's a
Yeah.
really important thing that I've learned to follow.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that because that's what very much what I
Yeah.
look at in the way that I approach things as well. Um, is that relationship side. I think one of the challenge there's a question in this, but I think one of the challenges that a lot of people have with that thinking is, yeah, but then I might be turning away business. And what's your take on that? Because I turn away business. If I don't feel I get on with somebody, I just don't work them because I've just learned it's way more painful down the road than just not enter it in the
Yeah.
first place. So for people that are like, I love the idea, the concept of that, but how in the world do I actually start doing that? What would you say?
Well, I think that when you're early on, no one gets through life unscathed, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like saying, I never want to have a bad breakup. It's like everybody has one, right? If you have six, we probably have to look at your patterns and why you keep engaging with it. But like everyone has a client that you got to the end of the day and you go, it was not worth it. It does not matter how much money they paid me. That was not worth it. The way that I have framed it with clients and with myself is that like mental and emotional energy is like our precious commodity, right? Like it isn't infinite, but it is renewable, like, right? That's why it's like so important for you to get sleep and exercise and all these things. If you actually do a cost benefit analysis and you add the mental and emotional energy factor into your cost benefit analysis, you will pretty quickly see that you don't want to do business with anyone you don't like.
Mm,
And then we'll go through a screening process. I develop kind of how do we take the things that you're looking for? How do we make sure? How do you ask questions to see whether somebody shares the values that you do in order to make sure that you're bringing clients? This is for a client, a business that is
yeah.
primarily client service. But it really is when you run the numbers, you go, I would rather you could have had five more clients that you liked that would have been easier to service versus that one high paying client that drove you crazy, that lived rent free in your head all the time. But I do believe that you kind of have to have a few of those to know that it's impossible
Yeah.
to just come out, we can say it, you can say it, but if you haven't had a couple of bad clients, you're not going to realize.
Yeah, you're not
Yeah.
gonna see you don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And until you experience it. And then once you experience it, then you choose whether you go into that in the future, which a lot of people still do because they're like, the purpose of business is just to make money. It's like, well, not if you're suffering. That's
Yeah.
horrible.
And saying no to something does not preclude you from saying it allows you to say yes to more things. It doesn't preclude you from saying yes to other things. So I have a hard time because I like to work like the toolkit. Like I said, I'm a generalist. So like I'm framing whatever you're bringing me, I'm going to frame the problem in a way if I can help you. If not, I'm going to find you someone who can help you. But that means that the specific business, like I work with nonprofits sometimes. We were talking about before, but I was like, if I throw that in the mix and people are like, you're a nonprofit coach, you're a nonprofit consultant, I'm like, what I do is I keep the doors open and the nonprofits that are referred to me come to me through my for-profit clients because
Mhm.
they're on a board of something. They know somebody who's on a board of something. They have a friend or a partner who is starting a nonprofit. So those clients come to me, but they come to me through referrals from people who are in my target profile. So you
Yeah.
can you're not necessarily turning business away by not advertising to it.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
absolutely. I love that. That's a very, very good way of looking at it. Well, over the next 2 to 3 years, what would you like to achieve? Where are you headed in your business?
I'd like to, it's interesting. I go in waves of expanding my geographic capacity. So I work globally. But
Yeah.
for the most part, most of my clients are kind of West Coast to UK, right? And I'm actually kind of interested in adding some more clients in Asia. I'd like to spend more time there. And I'd
Mm,
like to add more clients in Europe so I can also spend more time there. And that those types of clients that make more sense there are going to be more workshop based. So I'm less of like an individual CEO where we're going to be on Zoom once a week or once every 2 weeks. And these will be more like a team where we might be looking at a global team that is where the central headquarters will be based in one of these geographies. So people will be coming together to do that work. And so that is something that I'm like, oh, I'd really like to spend time. I have friends and family all over the world, like to spend more time there. How can I build my business to meet that need? And that's also ties with, I love working with teams and I find it super interesting. So that's like an example where I'm like, that's a life goal that I'd like to be able to go to Asia next winter. It's
yeah.
been freezing in the New England where I live in the past couple of winters. And I was like, oh, okay, in order to do that, I've got to build out some clients. And it doesn't make sense for me to build out. I don't want to work at 9 p.m. or 2 a.m. So I'm not going to build out a stable of individual CEOs, but it does make sense to build out some team capacity there.
Yeah.
So, like that's the kind of thing that's a little bit how I think about my business. And that's because
Yeah.
I run my own business, right? That's the joy
Yeah.
of being private. I'm privately owned. I don't have
Yeah.
shareholders who are on my case about it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I love that the perspective you have on that is like, oh, okay, I want to go here, I want to travel here. So let me build some business around that will help fund that and give me that
yeah.
lifestyle with it. And I think that's a really great way to do it. Very, very I mean, I think most business owners are intentional, but I love when people are intentional of going, I'm actually doing this for my lifestyle and what I enjoy as opposed to just, the
Yeah.
dollar, how can it make? And nothing right or wrong with either one of them, but I just love your perspective on that. So, well, for people that are wanting to learn a little bit more about you and how they, maybe how you can help them, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
LinkedIn is you can book an intro call with me right on my profile. There are not a lot of Keziah Robinsons on LinkedIn, so I should show up high on your list. If you can't find me, you probably spelled my name with an K-A-Z, not K-E-Z. That's what I tell people. But that is the best way. You could come to my website. You can reach out to me that way. Yeah, send me an email. I'm pretty easy to find, but LinkedIn is generally cuts through the clutter. And I know, like, Many people, I do actually check my LinkedIn messages. So please feel free to reach out to me.
Amazing. Well, I definitely recommend everyone reaching out to Casey if you feel that she can help you in any way. If you do send her a message on LinkedIn, reference this podcast, because if you just
Mhm.
send a blank message, she's not going to know who you are, and it's going to look like spam. And so I could just make sure and be relational in your approach,
Exactly.
which is very important. So definitely reach out to Kezia in any way that you think that she might be able to help you out. So thank you so much for being on the show and just sharing your wisdom and experience. I really do appreciate you taking the time out to be with us today. And as a reminder for everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the LinkedIn Reverse Podcast Method, the new way established businesses are creating a reliable acquisition channel of conversations with their ideal prospects that doesn't rely on any of the old, ineffective traditional marketing methods that everybody hates. And to find out more, direct message me on LinkedIn to have a chat. That's Jason A. Osborn. The link to that will be in the show notes below. And until next episode, stay inspired.